A $1,200 iPhone sits next to a $400 Android, and yet Apple claims nearly 90% of the entire industry's profits, despite owning just a fraction of the market. The secret is not just in the sticker price. It is a web of hidden costs, cash flow tricks, and stores turning every swipe into a money machine. So how does Apple turn fewer sales into a towering profit engine? The answer starts where few ever look: the moment you tap pay. Maya's checkout screen blinks, $1,099 for the latest iPhone. Hidden behind that price is a global relay of parts, contracts, and assembly lines. The phone in her hand costs Apple about $580 to build. The A18 Pro chip inside, designed in California and produced by TSMC in Taiwan, costs nearly $91. The camera array from Sony in Japan adds $127. The OLED display comes from Samsung at about $38 per unit. Storage, battery, and memory each come from a different supplier, each with its own margin, each slotting into Apple's design like clockwork. Once the parts are ready, they travel to Foxconn in China or India. There, workers on the assembly line earn about $30 for every iPhone they help put together. If the same work happened in the United States, labor alone would soar to $300 per device. Apple's supply chain is tuned for efficiency, not nostalgia. When Maya taps pay, she is not just buying a phone, she is funding a network of suppliers, factories, and contracts engineered to keep Apple's hardware margins near 45%. Apple's spending behind each device stretches far beyond the assembly line. Every year, the company pours $25 billion to $30 billion into research and development. That budget fuels everything from custom chip design to iOS updates and the camera features Maya uses every day. Spread across more than 200 million iPhones sold annually, research and development alone adds roughly $125 to $150 to the cost of each device. Marketing, by contrast, is lean. Despite Apple's global reach, independent estimates put its direct advertising budget at about 1 to 2% of revenue, a few $billion a year on a $400 billion base. Instead of flooding the airwaves, Apple relies on minimalist campaigns, product launches that become news events, and the power of its own customers to spread the word. The company's more than 500 retail stores double as both sales engines and brand showcases. Industry studies throughout the 2010s ranked Apple stores among the most productive retail spaces in the world, generating several $1,000s of sales per square foot each year, far above luxury brands or electronics chains. The Genius Bar, staffed by technical specialists rather than commission-driven salespeople, turns service into loyalty, nudging customers to return and upgrade. For Apple, the store is not just a place to buy a phone. It is a carefully engineered experience that keeps the ecosystem spinning. Maya's payment for her new iPhone doesn't just cover parts and labor, it becomes Apple's secret weapon. While most companies scramble to clear warehouses packed with unsold phones, Apple keeps only 5 or 6 days of inventory on hand. That's a fraction of the industry average, where rivals often sit on stock for a month or more. The real twist comes after Maya's card is charged. Apple collects her money instantly, but suppliers like TSMC and Foxconn might wait 3 months or longer to get paid. Apple's average payable period stretches past 90 days, giving it a negative cash conversion cycle. In practical terms, Apple uses customer payments as free financing to run its business, invest in new products, and even fund buybacks before a single supplier invoice comes due. This timing trick quietly frees up billions, turning every iPhone launch into a rolling source of working capital. For Apple, the cash flows in before the bills go out. It is a structural advantage that few competitors can match. Apple's real windfall does not come from selling the phone in Maya's hand. It comes from the digital world that the phone unlocks. Last year, Apple's services business brought in between $85 billion and $95 billion. That's about a quarter of the company's total revenue, and it delivers nearly double the profit margin of hardware, around 70 to 75%. The App Store alone takes a 15 to 30% cut of every paid app, every in-app purchase, or subscription, depending on the developer and how long the subscription has lasted. Maya's phone is just one of more than 1 billion paid subscriptions managed by Apple worldwide. These are not just Apple's own services, but also third-party apps and content billed through Apple's system. Each subscription, each renewal, each microtransaction is a steady drip that adds up to a flood. For Apple, the sale of a device is just the beginning. The real profit engine is the network of services humming in the background, quietly multiplying the value of every iPhone sold. Maya's new iPhone isn't just a phone, it's a ticket into a web of devices and habits that is hard to escape. In the average Apple household, 2 or 3 devices quietly talk to each other, messages sync, photos appear everywhere, AirPods switch from Mac to iPhone with a tap. The more you buy in, the harder it is to leave. iMessage threads do not transfer to Android. Years of iCloud photos and paid apps are stuck behind Apple's walls. Even the family group chat, with its blue bubbles, becomes a reason to stick around. Apple's pricing ladder does the rest. The $1,199 Pro Max makes the $999 Pro seem almost reasonable, while the base model quietly slides up each year. Monthly payment plans and trade-in offers normalize the idea of swapping your phone annually. Planned obsolescence lurks in the background. Older models slow down after a few iOS updates, nudging users toward the latest release. Behavioral economists call this a lock-in loop. For Apple, every device, every upgrade, every small friction to switching adds up to more than $1,000 in extra revenue per loyal customer without a single hard sell. Every time Maya opens Safari on her new iPhone and types a search, Apple quietly collects a fee, whether she realizes it or not. Google pays Apple an estimated $18 to $20 billion a year just to remain the default search engine on iPhones, iPads, and Macs. This deal is one of the largest technology partnerships in the world, and it is almost pure profit for Apple. The company does not have to build a search engine or run ads. It only has to set a default and watch the money flow in. These payments make up nearly a quarter of Apple's services revenue, and because there is hardly any cost attached, the profit margin is close to 100%. But the hidden cash flows do not stop there. When Maya taps Add AppleCare at checkout, she is buying a high-margin insurance plan. AppleCare brings in billions every year, with gross margins topping 70%. Only a fraction of customers ever need a repair, so most of that money stays with Apple. Later, if Maya trades in her phone, Apple refurbishes and resells it, squeezing more profit from the same device. Even banks and payment processors pay Apple a cut for every Apple Card or Apple Pay transaction. Layer by layer, the company turns every touchpoint into a fresh stream of profit. Search, warranty, payment, resale, each one adds up. The gains are not flashy, they are steady and hidden, and they sit in plain sight. Maya's spending is just getting started. Apple's profit on her $1,099 iPhone sits around $400, thanks to hardware margins that tower over most consumer electronics. But that is just the first layer. Over the next 3 years, Maya's digital life adds another $300 in services, from App Store downloads, iCloud storage, and Apple Music subscriptions. With margins close to 70%, Apple keeps about $210 in profit from these recurring charges. Accessories build the next block. AirPods, a MagSafe charger, maybe a new case, add up to $200 in extra sales, with Apple pocketing about $100 more thanks to high accessory margins. Piece by piece, each segment of Maya's Apple experience stacks another chunk of profit onto the total, turning a single device purchase into a multi-year flow of earnings. For Maya, the numbers keep stacking. After her initial iPhone purchase and a steady stream of services, accessories, and upgrades, Apple's total gross profit from her climbs passed $900 over 3 years. That includes $200 from additional devices, an iPad for work, maybe a MacBook for school, each one deepening the connection and padding Apple's bottom line. Now compare that to the rest of the industry. A typical Android manufacturer earns just $50 to $100 in profit from a single phone, with little hope of more unless the customer comes back for another device. Apple's model is not about selling one phone at a time. It is about building a financial relationship that multiplies with every tap, every subscription, every device added to the household. Apple's profits aren't just about selling devices, they are about owning the entire experience, from hardware to services. As subscriptions and ecosystems redefine tech, the real competition is for your digital loyalty. In today's economy, attention isn't just currency, it's the product. How much is yours worth?